Hello, my name is Sophie and welcome to episode 50 of the Link Building Show. Today I'm here with Ant and we're going to be looking back at the first 50 episodes of the show so far.
In episode 1, Molly introduced the series with an overview of the growth of the company, the benefits of evergreen campaigns, and the challenges of working in digital PR.
In episode 2, company director Ferry interviewed Mario and Luigi about their favourite campaigns, the importance of email headlines, and their most successful campaigns.
In episode 4, we talked about how to find interesting stories for creative campaigns, reusing old ideas with new data and finding new ideas in existing datasets.
In episode 5, Ferry and digital PR manager Maddie discuss the importance of finding stories that are topically relevant in the news and relevant to our clients' niches.
In episode 6, we talked about how to attract a journalist's attention. This included having an enticing subject line, a very strong headline, making sure that you're sending your press release to highly relevant journalists and publications, and then also sharing your press release on Twitter.
In episode 8, we had the debut of Andrew, head of PR here at Search Intelligence, talking about different methods of link building. We explained the difference between black hat and white hat link building methods and looking at different approaches such as blogger outreach, PR link building and others.
In episode 9, we talked about something that can be really difficult for those working in digital PR, and that's switching off and maintaining a good work-life balance. From noticing stories at the weekend to checking your links in the evenings, digital PR is an industry that never sleeps, and it's important to maintain that balance.
In episode 10, we explained what a syndicated link is. Publications like The Sun, Yahoo and Reach PLC regional publications have tens or hundreds of websites all under the same domain. Links attained on these websites are only viewed as one link by Google, so aren't great for SEO optimization, but can be a fantastic opportunity for the client's name to be seen by many people and maybe even other journalists.
In episode 12, we talked about landing coverage in the US. It's much the same as landing coverage anywhere else, except you have to take the time differences into consideration and also the Americanization spelling of words. Regional campaigns also do really well in the US because you can break down your campaign by state, as each state will be interested in its own tailored press release.
In episode 13, Ferry and Andrew were back and talking about the process of writing a press release, including mentioning the client, writing up the data, including a quote, and signing off in a friendly but professional manner.
Episode 14 was about how to turn a placement into a link for the client, with tips on finding the right contact details for the journalist, how many times to email them, and finding the times that they'll most likely read them.
In episode 15, we talked about regional campaigns across the UK. Reach PLC have a huge series of publications for towns and cities all over the UK. Although these count as syndicated links, it's still a great group of publications to be featured on.
In episode 16, we talked about being creative as part of your job role, addressing how to deal with creativity blocks and how to ideate by yourself or with your team.
Episode 17 was about the importance of quality content, delving into what quality really means and how that can differ with varying forms of content. Our recommendation is to figure out what your content needs to define it as high quality and make sure you're establishing yourself as an authority in your niche.
In episode 19, we met Rebecca, one of our content managers, to discuss the relationship between digital PR and content marketing. Both are defining pillars within SEO, and having both is key to seeing viable results.
Episode 23 was about the difference between no-follow and do-follow links, how you can find which one a journalist has used and how they're viewed by Google.
Episode 24 covered a variety of data sources that the team regularly uses, including things like Google Trends, social media, BuzzSumo, Ahrefs, and more.
In episode 27, Louis looked more closely at the differences between trending and evergreen campaigns, addressing how to handle sensitive topics in PR, how to research each type of campaign, and how fast a reactive campaign should be sent.
In episode 28, we discussed maximising the coverage for your campaigns. List-based campaigns are a great way to get loads of coverage, because every item on the list, whether it's a celebrity, a video game, or a region in the UK, is likely to have a different journalist covering it.
Episode 29 looked more closely at reactive campaigns. Also known as newsjacking, reactive campaigns are a fantastic way to bring a new angle to a story that's already getting coverage. And when done right, it can lead to a very successful campaign.
In episode 30, we talked about writing for a campaign that you might not be interested in. Not everybody knows much or enjoys writing about a client's niche. That's to be expected in agency work, but there are plenty of ways to still produce great campaigns around these topics.
In episode 32, we talked about BuzzSumo, another resource we use here at Search Intelligence. We discussed the kind of campaigns BuzzSumo is useful for, the best time to send using BuzzSumo, and using BuzzSumo for index data.
In episode 34, we talked about the distribution stage of the digital PR process. When you send out your press release, the journalist list that you curate and international time zones are very important things to consider.
Episode 36 looked at the differences between writing for digital PR and content marketing. what each style prioritises and what tools are helpful to each.
In episode 37, we discussed how to approach writing for different topics, whether it's having to switch from a boiler client to a tax client on the same day, or having to research an industry that you know nothing about. Working with so many niches presents its own challenges.
In episode 38, we discussed a kind of campaign we hadn't discussed before: exclusives. When a digital PR has built up a solid relationship with a journalist, they may request exclusivity on your press release, an exclusive quote for an article they're working on, or even an exclusive idea that they'd like you to research.
Episode 39 focused on the importance of quality research and data. As the backbone of everything in digital PR, certifying reliable data for your press release is key.
In episode 41, we talked all about resends. Journalists get hundreds, if not thousands, of emails a day, so it's no surprise that they miss a few here and there. There's a fine line between the right number of resends and oversending, so finding that balance is key.
In episode 42, we discussed the specifics of structuring an email with a press release and how you can use that interaction to not only gain links, but to also build relationships with journalists.
In episode 43, we talked about the different ways you can use Twitter in digital PR, the community of other PRs, using the journo request hashtag to request specific data for your press release, and lots of other tips and tricks.
Episode 44 was a guide to ideation, from finding inspiration and researching and collecting data, to clients rejecting ideas and ideation resources. We covered all aspects of coming up with ideas.
In episode 46, we discussed how to actually find your links, including how to efficiently use Google searches and specific resources that can help you find the ones that Google missed.
In episode 47, we took a deep dive into ONS, the Office for National Statistics, looking at the kind of data that it can offer and the multitude of campaigns you can create.
Episode 48 discussed the perception that tabloid links aren't as worthy as links on non-tabloid publications, and the differences between the types of campaign that can go on each type of site.
And last week's episode, episode 49, focused on distribution and finding the right journalist to send your press release to.
If you missed any of these episodes and anything sounds interesting to you, we have a whole playlist of the whole series on our YouTube channel. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next 50 episodes of The Link Building Show.